So this video is about layers of healing, and because what I find is there's a lot of myths about what healing is, and they're based by people who already have basic stability in their life, and so they suggest a lot of things about healing that might not be the best for everybody, because they might need to do other things before they can even get to that stage. An example might be getting a pet would be good for your mental health. Well, not necessarily. If you're not well enough to look after it, you might not even realize that. You might find that it makes you more sick. It might the you know the way I think of it is like in recovery we have these steps in there's steps in order for a reason, and there's the step that's about meditation and prayer. It's number 10 after you've cleared away the past and you've got connected to God and you've resolved enough internal difficulties to have some serenity in your life and be able to practice. And so there's a lot of Buddhist practitioners out there that are trying to suggest meditation for people who there's no way they can sit still for 5 minutes because they've got so much suppressed stuff that needs to be cleared. The cupboards need to be cleared out before they could do it. And the way that I think of it is that in the sense that there's the Buddhist wheel of life, and it's got like say 6 different or whatever different worlds, and there's the human world, the animal world, the gods world, and there's an awareness that they are in a different realm. But for me, what's important is that the foundational rules of that realm might be different that they're operating under. And one of the biggest mistakes in life, foundationally, is to operate under rules that do not apply to you. And spend time. It's okay to be around people that have different foundational rules, but you better know that they're different foundationally to the rules that you need to be able to live. And a great example of that is being an addict, because when people come in, they tell them you are different to other people. You can't safely use and drink, and all the suggestions that normal people use when they go a bit OTT about this stuff. Just quit, just moderate. That's not, that. If you're an addict, it doesn't work for you. So the addicts are living by different foundational rules. You see this also in whether it's being gay or something like this, or whether it's being poor. Like the things that people can do are different, and there's nothing wrong with those differences. It's only when we've bought into the illusion that we're from another group that we get into trouble. So I think it's really a big foundational thing to make sure that you know what rules you're living by, because what harms one person will be good for another, and etc. And like this, and so many of the things that I might talk about in this are things that are they're better for people who are already sorted out. It's like you're topping up on your wellness. But let's face it, most spiritual advice is for spiritually well people to top up on their wellness, not for spiritually sick people, not for vulnerable people. And a lot of people don't know how to get people from A to B and get them into that situation where they can do that. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about as well is it's something that's mentioned in recovery a lot, alluded to, is the idea of like root and branch. And what I see when I think about what most people think healing is, in fact, I would say that most people don't know what healing is, and it's not even part of the paradigm of consciousness of medical experts. There's getting symptoms to disappear, to stop happening, but also with side effects. And but there's the idea that you could be healed or cured is something that's you could be cynical about this and say that this on purpose or whatever. Who's to say? But the idea that you could be cured is not something that's possible within that framework. And often people who do heal and are cured miraculously it's explained away, and it's not interested to people. So in when people go through recovery, they will look at the things that people have done to manage the symptoms, and when they do that, is trying to get to the causality, the actual core root of the problem, because you could spend your whole life trying to, not do these little things to stop yourself, to mitigate the consequences of the problem that you have, and you don't see the direct problem, and people on the outside, they think it's actually hilariously funny in a way, like how incapable the person in the middle is of seeing how they create the problem. It's for them, for the self, it just seems to be happening, and so that's the process that happens with recovery, and that's a process that most people who are addicts, a lot of people around them will say, yeah, you've got a drinking problem, you've got this problem. It's really, really obvious. And I want to say that 99, there's sort of karmic, beside the karmic proclivity of illness, 99% of illnesses it can be the same level of obvious to somebody that's trained in the right way to see the actual symptom and cause. Until that cause is acknowledged, whatever it may be, there's going to be no healing, only symptom management or declining, managing the decline of the body. But once that core is removed, the core fear, belief, or it might be a cluster, it might be a series of things that need to be realized. Once those things have been realized, the symptoms disappear, all of them by themselves, and the need to manage disappears, and the whole operating system is different. And so when thinking about healing, it's important to do that. And I think that one of the other things that's relevant to this is that why, again, recovery comes into it is because it's kind of the only thing that I know, like there are other spiritual things in the world, but it's the only thing that I've ever come across where they talk about you being the problem and what you're doing. And I think that's totally unique. I don't think therapists don't talk about it, doctors don't talk about it. Maybe your mum talks about it to you, but and that's the practice. The practice is to see, to look at self and what self is doing. And once you catch yourself doing things, it's so obvious. It's so painfully obvious that it's almost laughable that you wouldn't notice it. But it's just because we've learned to not to do all this symptom management, to think that we are this way and we can't change and there's nothing that we could do about any of these things. And people think that it's an illness is that's it, you've just got it. I always thought it was funny when I was a teenager, you'd hear about people who had cancer, and I heard these vague things that people would say like, oh well, there's the difference between the people that survive cancer and the ones who don't are the ones who fight. And I thought, well, that's so interesting. What does that mean? What does that mean about cancer? I thought maybe cancer was this thing that was affected by will. And I've now come to realize that every single illness except the karmic proclivity. You know, the 99% of illnesses that I have, it is a matter of will, but it's not the same as willpower, like trying to override, like you know, the ego trying to force something. That's, you know, something that, you know, people in recovery are very used to, trying to make it happen yourself, trying to, you know, only drink at the weekend, only drink when you're at home, only, you know, every rule and every other rule just to try and mitigate the consequences. And that's not sobriety, it's not freedom, it's not letting go. And the core can hide. I don't know, when I'm saying all this, it's like, in one part of me thinks it sounds totally insane and why would anyone even listen to me, and the other part of me thinks it's so obvious everybody must already know this because it's so simple, and it's so natural. Like, the body wants to heal, and the body wants to send messages. And the other thing is that once the message is received by the individual, it's not even like life, for me, life improves because there's some misthinking and misbehavior and misunderstanding that I'm perpetuating through these, through whatever I'm doing. And once that's corrected, not only do I get more well, my life improves and my relationships improve and all of these things improve. And so yeah, I think that, I don't know if this has been a bit rambly, but I wanted to, you know, go back a bit to before, because I think in the other ones I've talked a bit about specific illnesses and how to work with them, but maybe it doesn't make sense to not go into how we get to understanding what we're even trying to look at. And yeah, it's the self, it's a belief or an emotion or a combination of things, and it's usually caused by an event, situation that hasn't been processed. And those events can seem bad, but everything is good in the non-dualist sense. And, you know, after you start to realise this, it's easy to start to want to avoid events, because events lead to more problems. And I definitely went through that sort of spiritual fatigue where I didn't want to experience any more stuff. And now, you know, I took a break and that, I gave myself what I needed, but now I just think, no, I trust my desire, even though half the time it leads to a lesson that I wish that I didn't have to. You know, you want your desire to lead to happy situations in your life. You know, the goals that you have, the holy trinity of things. You know, the car, the job, and partner is what they call it. And it doesn't, like 50% of the time it leads to, you know, another insult to your character, because you realise you're being selfish, you realise you're being petty, you realise you're being afraid, but that's good, because then you get stronger, you get more well, and yeah. And I will also say that I've learned so much from being ill, and I feel that on some level I chose to be ill, even though that sounds insane, because I've been so ill for a lot of my life. Because in being ill, I've really understood what it is to be a human and what humans experience. And a long time ago I wrote this thing, it was a bit of a joke, and it kind of feels truer now. It's like, if you want to become human, catch the world's illnesses. And I regretted saying it, because literally the next day I found out about the pandemic, and within a short amount of time I'd got the illness, and it was not fun at all. But learning to become sort of immune to these things through having a stronger consciousness, through choosing to not identify, has been amazing. And I remember Eckhart Tolle talking about not identifying with colds, and I tried it out, and it worked. But it only worked because I had to see that the real reason I was getting a cold was because I wanted to be left. There's certain things I didn't want to do, and I felt overwhelmed. And instead of prioritizing, cancelling, here comes the cold. And but ultimately, it's about waking up and seeing that we have a lot more power, and experimenting with it and trying to have fun with it, which that's the last thing you want to do when you feel terrible. But the more fun that you can have with it, the more free that you can get, and the easier it is to let things bounce off. I hope that's not alienated anybody because of being too honest. I'll see you in the next thing.